with a lot of documentation. And I want to talk because today, interestingly enough, there's more coming out. Benjamin Netanyahu himself is now openly talking about the oil. And I don't have a problem with that, but I did notice that there are those out there now attacking Benjamin Netanyahu, saying how silly he is to be mentioning that this is about oil. Well, that's not the only reason, and no one should think that's the only reason, but that certainly is a reason. But if you're a little country the size of New Jersey and you need more oil, because they have a lot of natural gas, no doubt about it, but they still need more oil themselves. And this is vital to your country's existence, economically, militarily, industrial-wise, everything else. Well, what's wrong with mentioning it? Because it is being used as a choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, by Iran against Israel and now America. Apparently, they're letting other ships through. Word is they're charging up to $2 million a tanker, but not American, not Israeli tankers coming through the Strait of Hormuz. And as we've been talking about last week, this week, this is a big part of the IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. This is a big part of Gaza, a Ben Gurion Canal. This is a big part of the rebuilding of Gaza. It all goes, part of the Abraham Accords. It all goes together. And so it is worthy of mentioning, and I think people actually, instead of being upset with Benjamin Netanyahu, should be appreciative that he was being honest. He could have played the political thing and never mentioned it, but he didn't, because it is part of their national security. Listen to what he said in the last few hours.
I tell you that there's enormous risk in not acting, much greater risk than acting. And if you think that the oil markets are in trouble today, think of Iran with nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them. Then think of the blackmail that you would endure.
I didn't exactly ask, however, why the Israel's... No, I think I only fair that this is a serious subject. This is a serious... My question...
For outlet.
Go ahead.
We don't have a lot of time.
Why don't... This is a world war and peace here.
Of course, but you have...
There are oil fields around the world that are burning. Gas prices are going up. The war is popular here in Israel. It is not popular with many Americans. So my question was, how do you see this ending? Not why, not even when. What do you imagine the day after will look like?
Well, we have achievable goals, and I'm not going to speak about the full battle plans that we have with the United States. We're well coordinated with them. I will say this, that once we achieve our goals, then I have argued, I think, and Americans understand this very well because we're real partners. I think that what has to be done is to have alternative routes. Instead of going through the choke points of the Hormuz Straits and the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, in order to have the flow of oil, just have oil pipelines going west through the Arabian Peninsula, right up to Israel, right up to our Mediterranean ports, and you've just done away with the choke points for forever. That is definitely possible. So I see that as a real change that will follow this war. But I also see this war ending a lot faster than people think. I think you have to, in war, you have to grit your teeth. Churchill said that democracies suffer from the slumber of democracies, as he called it. And they only wake up, he said, they may wake up only when they hear the gong, the jarring gong of danger, is the way he put it. Well, you're hearing the jarring gong of danger. The jarring gong of danger is Iran gets nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. That's not a jarring gong. That is an apocalypse. Don't let it happen. And the function of leaders is to stand and tell people the truth, even when things are uncomfortable. That's what you have to do. And you don't always see the danger in time. But leaders are tasked with the task of seeing danger in time and acting on it. And I hope that in time, people will see the wisdom and the courage of President Trump's decision and his leadership and the fact that we're working together. America is not fighting for Israel. America is fighting with Israel for a common goal, to protect our future, to protect civilization against these barbarians.
Joining me now is Dr. Andy Woods and Dr. Rob Lindsted. Gentlemen, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for being with us.
Good to be here.
The article I have today, I don't know if any of you guys had a chance to read it over at worldviewtimes.com. A headline again, is the Ezekiel 38-39 Gog-Magog coalition forming right now to seize Israel's natural gas, oil, and IMEC trade corridor. I go through some of the nations, and Dr. Woods, perhaps you can list off some of those nations. I go through the list of nations that would be included as coming against Israel for her treasures. And I'm wondering now if this is not setting the stage for that. I am now hearing that what is being proposed is perhaps by one group that the current regime can stay in power in Iran, but America is going to, and a coalition, and President Trump said from the Oval Office, or where was on the tarmac the other day in Florida, West Palm Beach on Monday morning, when asked who's going to control the corridor, he said, me. And then he said a coalition maybe, but me. Well, that fits with the Board of Peace that he's in charge of and so much. I'm not arguing that point, but if he decides to get control of it, part of the deal could be, we'll let you stay in power, regime in Iran, but we're going to control this Strait of Hormuz. One way or the other, we can control it. We're going to control it with you not in power, or we're going to control it with you in power, but we're controlling it. And maybe the strait ends up being used as a carrot and a stick. And if America and the coalition and IMEC and Israel and all these groups get control of that Strait of Hormuz for their various plans, and maybe there's peace for a while. Maybe things kind of go along fine for a while. I'm just throwing out a theory here. But maybe at some point, Iran decides, no, we don't like this. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm wondering if there's a scenario of which the current Islamic regime stays in power, but yet America gets control of that strait. Because when you read the Gaza plan by Jared Kushner and Witkoff, you read IMEC, you read the Abraham Accords, all of this hinges around the problem of Iran. They keep bringing up Iran months ago in their reports. It's the oil, it's the fly in the ointment, if you will. Dr. Woods?
Well, I mean, that whole scenario you're describing there, seems very credible to me. I mean, I noticed, first of all, there's less and less talk about regime change. I remember maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago, that's all they were talking about. I don't hear people talking about that as frequently. And so an aggressive, belligerent Iran, staying on the world stage without regime change fits Bible prophecy. And then if the scenario that you're describing concerning a temporal peace is accurate, that fits Bible prophecy very well, because it's very clear when you look at Ezekiel 38, verse 8 and verse 11, that the nation is invaded by this conglomeration of nations spearheaded by Russia, Iran, and Turkey during a time of tranquility and peace. And then the whole subject of oil and wealth in Israel, Israel needing oil, the nations surrounding Israel jealous of Israel because of her treasures. That fits Ezekiel 38, verses 12 and 13 very well, because those verses give us the motivation for these attackers in this prophesied Gog-Magog invasion. It's very clearly spoil, gold, silver, cattle and goods, earthly wealth. So, it's studying the Gog-Magog coalition of Ezekiel 38 and 39 is always interesting, because every time I revisit it, and I revisit it frequently, the scenario moves sharper into clarity and focus. It doesn't move further and further away from what the scripture predicts for the end of the age.
Wow. Dr. Lindsted?
Yeah, I think where we're at right now is so interesting. And the reason I say that is because my question that I'm actually planning to do on our daily broadcast is, where's the war going? And my subheading is, no one knows, ... Dot, except for those who read the Bible. And Andy and I haven't talked about this ahead of the show, but I really see Jeremiah 49 as talking about the war. I don't know when it will all be completed, but I think in terms of seeing the missiles taken down, the missile launchers taken down, seeing the king and the princes removed, seeing something that's worldwide, goes four corners. I think that's what we're walking. I call that the war. But when I come to Ezekiel 38 and 39, I call that the wealth. The motive of their coming down is not a war as much as it is the wealth. And you have said it, and Dr. Woods has said it, that there's something of value. And I think Israel has that something of value. It could well be oil and gas. They have incredible. It could be food. Israel is experts at growing food. It could be water, but I think it's going to be wealth. And so if it's a passageway, that could be it. But to me, what's interesting is look how this has changed in 2 or 3 weeks. You cannot put your finger on where the war is going. We started out saying we needed relief from a nuclear scare. Iran is a nuclear scare. There's no doubt they were so close to nuclear weapon that it's frightening to everybody who knows anything about nuclear weapons. There's no doubt that if they could make 10 or 11 nuclear bombs, or if they could put them into those missiles, think about the number of missiles, 3,500 missiles and drones have gone out of Iran, incredible number. And thank God that number is decreasing exponentially. We need it to be zero, but it's, so we start out with a nuclear threat. We talked about safety. Israel's not safe. Europe's not safe. The United States isn't safe. Then we talked about oil. And the world needs oil. The United States does not need that oil. It's a different kind of oil. There's several flavors of oil, and each area has a different refinery to refine certain oils. But there's no doubt that Japan and China need this oil, and other parts of the world need it too. But it's more than just oil. Is it trade? Here's what I
hold right there. I don't want folks to miss any of this. The computer's going to take it away. We'll come back with more with Dr. Woods of AndyWoodsMinistries.org and Dr. Rob Lindsted of BibleTipNow.org. Go to worldviewtalk.com.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
And welcome back. Glad you're with us, Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. If you go to worldviewtimes.com, as I said, I have an article I worked on this morning and we posted at worldviewtimes.com. Let me read to you the last couple paragraphs. The Gog-Magog coalition is no fairy tale. The spoils are visible. The corridors are visible. The choke points are visible. The alliances are visible. The system architect is becoming visible day by day. Russia, Iran, Turkey, and their allies may well see Israel's energy wealth, strategic geography, and corridor position as a prize too great to ignore. IMEC, the Strait of Hormuz, Gaza, and the broader Babylonian region all add fresh dimensions to why Ezekiel's spoil language feels more relevant right now than it has for a very long time. The curtain has not been raised on the stage of prophetic events, but the curtain is moving as the actors and infrastructure is being built and moved into place before the curtain goes up. This is why I'm looking up for the soon appearing of the Lord in the clouds and the sound of the trumpet and the church to be caught up while the prophetic curtain on the world stage is lifted and the end time events play out. What do you make of that wording, Dr. Lindsted?
Yeah, I believe that we're living in biblical times. I can't believe that we've seen this many heads of the snake come out. For example, I think within the next couple of hours, it will be released, if it's not released as we're talking right now, that Iran wants to deal with J.D. Vance and not Jared and Steve. That's interesting. Why? I didn't know we had several teams, a different team, but evidently there's something going on. I think part of what's going on is this, that the Kushner-Witkoff situation team, isn't it interesting that they're so interested in the wealth of it and refurbishing it? You know, we see the Abraham Accords, we see the Gaza resort. Now we're looking at something that's going to control trade in oil. And so we're not the only ones that are looking at this. Even the Muslim world says, hey, are these guys really interested in peace, or are they interested in control? We have people that are masters of control. I'm not saying that either of those guys are the Antichrist, but I think they could play into the hand of the Antichrist, because I've never seen people pursue wealth beyond even safety, pursue wealth and prosperity and billions of dollars and so on like that. They're not interested, really. Safety is second nature. We're looking at putting troops on the ground. We're doing all kinds of things. But the real truth is the leadership, the brains behind Iran is the Muslim Brotherhood. As far as we know, it's intact. Yes, we've taken out the chief leader. We've taken out 30, 40 other leaders. We've taken out. Who wants the job? You only last a day or two, and then you're assassinated. So there's something very strange about this. I don't think we really know the cause. No one has told us the cause, from the White House to Israel. I'm very pro-Israel. I'm pro-God. I'm pro-Bible. I'm pro-Israel. I'm pro-America. But I think we're in never land right now. I don't think anyone knows what's really the cause, what's motivating this war. Yeah, I could be motivated by world safety. I could be motivated by controlling the oil supply, especially to the enemies. I can be motivated by safety for people in Israel. The cluster bombs. I don't know if anyone's discussed that. These are incredible. There's no way to escape it. You go for one missile that turns into 80. Look at the devastation taking place in Tel Aviv. I have a newscast where a man cries on the broadcast because of the cluster bombs. These are not approved by any war monger people. It's hideous. There's no way to protect yourself. I'm talking to people in Israel who've been in bomb shelters for 15 to 18 hours a day for 3 weeks. There's no sign of relief. Where's the war going? The only thing I can say, I believe that the hand of God is setting up these nations. I think it will be I think it is a fulfillment right now of Jeremiah 49. The beginning of it is the fulfillment of Jeremiah 49 with Persia, Iran, causing a worldwide situation in which the major leaders are taken out. But I think the whole thing will end in Israel saying, we're finally safe. So now they're willing to set down weapons. They're willing to sign a peace treaty. There's incredible talk. There's groups. They're crazy groups. I call them that. Some of them are my friends. They're crazy groups, and they're planning an incredible display on Passover in terms of sacrifices. So we have all this coming together at a head. That's why we don't know the cause of the war. It has many features. But the snake is still the Muslim Brotherhood. The snake is still that these people hate Israel and the God of the Jews. But I think Israel could be tricked into thinking they're finally safe. Let's sign an agreement that allows us to go back on the Temple Mount. And if they do that, now we find the fulfillment when finally the midpoint of the tribulation, the Antichrist, his treaty is broken. He breaks his word. And now we find the scenario that we've been talking about, Ezekiel 38 and 39. Wow, only the Bible explains it, because there's no diplomat that's saying this. It's the Bible that's saying it.
Excellent. Excellent, Dr. Lindsted. Absolutely excellent. And I did find this article where the PLO, you sent it to me, the PLO warns against Passover sacrifice on the Temple Mount. The Palestinian Liberation Organization denies the historical and religious Jewish connection to the Temple Mount and warns against plans to perform the Passover sacrifice during the upcoming holiday. Dr. Woods, let's go back to stage setting. I mean, Erdogan is becoming more and more aligned with Russia. He's becoming and revealing himself to be more and more of someone that wants to put, I guess, together the old Ottoman Empire. We saw that he purged his own country and reportedly murdered a lot of people, including generals and others that were not into a Islamic theocratic government that he wants. So we see Turkey rising in the last few years. Obviously, now we see one leader after another dying in Iran. But do you see a regime change in Iran? Because I don't. And I could be 100% wrong, but I don't see a regime change. What I see is what I described earlier. As long as they use the Strait as a bargaining tool, and Iran at some point has to back down just for a time, which they always do. They buy time. They're like Hamas. They're always buying time. And this will just buy them some time to plan maybe their Gog-Magog invasion with Israel, or excuse me, with Turkey and the others that come in tow with them. And name some of those other countries, if you would, please.
Yeah, well, the invaders into the land of Israel in the last days, according to Ezekiel 38 and 39, a prophecy that was given by the Holy Spirit through Ezekiel 2,600 years ago, are as follows. Put is Libya, Cush would be the Sudan, Persia would be Iran, Magog would be Central Asia, the different stands.
Sorry, guys.
And then you have Rosh, which is Russia. And then it's interesting, you just mentioned Turkey. Ezekiel designates 4 names to Turkey: Meshach, Tubal, Gomer, and Togarmah. And if people want to know how we deduce this, it's just a matter of looking at the table of nations in Genesis 10, which is a record of where Noah's descendants settled following the global flood, and using classical sources to track where those people went, and then identifying the modern nations containing those people groups. So this is not rip and read. It's not newspaper exegesis. It's based on solid academic work. And then from there, there's no crime in looking at the headlines, and it's eerie to see the parallels. So I agree with you. It looks to me like the current war in Iran is sort of cosmetic. As much as I hate to describe it that way, there's not a lot of talk anymore about regime change. And I've always felt that the long-term character of Iran is not going to change anytime soon because of Ezekiel's prophecy. Ezekiel predicts Persia or Iran very clearly as one of the key invaders, into the land of Israel in the last days. And one other thing I would encourage people to keep an eye on is the Rosh-Persia connection. This war in Iran is driving Persia or Iran into the arms of Russia. Mm-hmm. And there's actually been news reports where our White House has sort of ignored how Russia right now is feeding intel to the Iranians.
Satellite
yeah, and all of that kind of thing. And so that fits Bible prophecy as well, because if Rosh and Persia are going to invade Israel in the last days, there has to be some kind of alliance between the two. And we've seen that develop over the years. And I think this current war in Iran is doing nothing more than strengthening that alliance.
Mm. There was a video that was put out on social media, I should say, not social media, what do you call it? YouTube, put out there on YouTube some time ago. Oh, it was actually over a year ago. And again, I guess most of us weren't paying attention like we should have been because there was so much going on, to why you had the leader of India and so many other countries coming to the White House. And I want you to listen to this. It's coming, I think, from an Indian news agency. So you got audio. I think it's coming from an Indian news agency. So obviously you're going to have to try to pay close attention due to the language, the heavy accent. But pay attention because I find this very interesting, and it helps to explain what's right out there in the open. Because both of our guests today have basically said they're not buying the full narrative here of what this war is about, that there's a lot more to this war than what we're being told. Particularly when you know, and we've been reporting with the late Dr. Peter Vincent Price sitting at this desk, who passed away, 3 or 4 years ago, saying back then, Iran already has a bomb. And as I was saying on the air last week, okay, I'm a big defender of Israel, and I think Iran is a threat and as a major funder of terrorism around the world. But why the urgency now? If they've had a bomb for a year, for several years, maybe a decade, why the urgency now? Is there intel that we're not being read in on as Americans? If so, I would appreciate a little bit of information to explain the urgency at this very moment. And I don't want to be anti-Benjamin Netanyahu, but he's been telling us for 20 years, they're getting a bomb, they're getting a bomb. We all remember when he was in as prime minister and went out as prime minister and then came back in. But when he was back there before he went out and came back in, he was at the UN with that famous whiteboard he held up with a bomb and a red line. What do you mean? That was how many years ago? So we keep hearing this. It's almost a little bit too much of the boy who cried wolf as far as the urgency of the moment. If it's an urgent moment, tell us, but don't keep saying that for 20 years or 5 years. So why now? Again, I want to leave room for grace to say, well, there's intel you're not privy to, Brandon. Okay, but you owe a responsibility, I think, to Americans and Israelis to at least tell us something, guys. Because I'm not buying it after all the years of red lines and they've got the bomb or about to get the bomb. No, they're not about to get the bomb. They've had the bomb, and we've been saying that here for so many years with the experts that know that was their job inside the CIA. So isn't it interesting that we are very strong Christian Zionists, but we're also being honest? And is this really about more than that? So when I come back, I'll play this video from this Indian news agency about IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor that ties together Gaza and so much more.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
So is the stage being set for Israel to acquire massive treasures that Turkey, Russia, and those that come with them want? But are those treasures incumbent upon the seizure of the Strait of Hormuz? Will some deal be kept so that the current regime in Iran can stay, but the control of the strait is no longer theirs? Will they go along with some kind of brokered deal until they break it, and a coalition with Russia and Turkey and others to come against Israel, thus setting the stage for Ezekiel 38 and 39. That's our topic today. Here is, and by the way, our guests again are Dr. Andy Woods of andywoodsministries.org and Dr. Rob Lindsted of BibleTipNow.com. Don't forget, Many are now registering for our fall conference. Can you imagine what we'll be talking about by the time October 23rd and 24th rolls around? And we have a Friday night, all day Saturday, our national conference for the first time ever, hosting the national conference in Milwaukee. We've held it in Branson for many years, then Lake of the Ozarks, last year in Memphis. This year, October 23, 24, Waukesha, Wisconsin, outside of Milwaukee. And for the first time in 22 years, we're not charging a fee for it. The building will cost over $10,000 for the 2 days, not to mention the speakers' honorariums, their airfare, their car rental, their hotel. But we'll raise the funds during the year and take an offering at that event. But the tickets are free, but you must have a ticket. And we are seeing a lot of people snatch up their ticket. You can do the same and at least block out the date now on your calendar, October 23rd and 24th, a Friday night and Saturday. Again, you can acquire your free ticket online at worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. Andy Woods, Patrick Wood, Jerome Hadian, myself, Alex Newman, Dr. Erwin Lutzer, Annie Cyrus. That's the lineup so far. We may add a few more. worldviewtube.com/events. Now, here is, again, something that was put up a year ago about IMEC. So much going on in the news. This kind of got away from us, but we're on it. We're on it now, folks. Here we go.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to France and the US has come to an end. One of the key agendas that were discussed during this trip was the India-Middle East-Europe Corridor, or IMEC. Donald Trump announced that India and the US have agreed to work together to build the corridor. Calling IMEC one of the greatest trade routes, he said it will operate from Israel to Italy and onward to the US. PM Modi also reviewed the project along with French President Emmanuel Macron earlier in the trip. Both the leaders had agreed that India and France should work more closely on building IMEC. So what is IMEC? Why is it significant? And how does it benefit India? Let's take a deep dive. India-Middle East-Europe Corridor is a global project aimed at boosting connectivity across Asia, West Asia, and Europe. It is set to comprise railroad, ship-to-rail networks, and road transport routes. The routes extend across 2 corridors involving 8 countries. Let's look at it on a map. The East Corridor connects India to the Gulf via UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel. Meanwhile, the Northern Corridor links the Gulf to Europe via Israel, Italy, France, and Germany. The project was announced back in 2023 at an event on the sidelines of G20 summit in New Delhi. Initial estimates suggested that each of its routes could cost anywhere between $3 billion and $8 billion. Now, why is IMEC so important? You see, the project aims to enhance transportation efficiency while reducing costs. Upon completion, it is expected to provide a reliable and cost-effective cross-border network that will supplement existing maritime and road transports. Some of its other benefits include enhanced trade opportunities, more employment, industrial growth, energy security and resource access, and lower greenhouse gas emissions. This was all about the economic implications of the project. Let's now talk about its geopolitical significance. IMEC is being seen as a potential counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative. It may counterbalance China's growing economic and political influence, especially in regions with historically strong ties to the US. The project also breaks Pakistan's veto over India's overland connectivity to the West.
Let's stop right there. This is going to block, and I keep reading this in many articles, it's going to block, really, or compete with, I should say, China's Belt and Road Initiative, much of that over land. So the question becomes, Dr. Woods, do we see China anywhere in this coalition of Gog-Magog? I think somewhere in the text it says, doesn't it? And those that come with them. So who are those that come with them?
Well, yeah, that's the thing to understand about Ezekiel's list in chapter 38 is it's not exhaustive because it talks about an invasion and then it names the principal 9 or so players and then it says, and those with you. So there's others, obviously, that are going to be involved. Now, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, and that's fine. It's healthy debate. But I do see China in Bible prophecy, as did the late Dr. John Walvoord. And I see it in the 6th trumpet judgment and the 6th bowl judgment, where the Euphrates River is dried up for the kings, not king, kings plural of the East. Walford identified these kings as Japan perhaps being one. Let's see, Indonesia, I think, being another one. And then one of them that he throws into the mix is China. And so a lot of people are saying, no, those are just demons. No, demons come out of the abyss. This is an army that comes from the east of the Euphrates River. I didn't know demons, needed a river dried up so they could make their, incursion into northern Israel to participate in the final battle called the Battle of Armageddon. And as this giant army of 200 million, and what nations could furnish an army of that size other than China and some of these others? As it moves into northern Israel for the final battle, it annihilates a third of the world's population in its trajectory. So with all of that being said, all of this talk that we hear today about the resurgence of China, the intervention of China into our electoral system here in the United States of America, the aggressive nature of China, China's long-term plan for world conquest, things that Gordon Chang, for example, warns us about over and over again. When people start talking that language, it gets my attention, my ears perk up, because I do see a potential role for China in the last days, which is different than what is described in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Ezekiel 38 and 39, particularly chapter 38, is just describing the initial tribulation period. But by the time you get to Revelation 16 and those bowl judgments, you're dealing with things towards the end of the tribulation period. And that's where China, I think, rears its ugly head, so to speak, in the pages of Bible prophecy.
Fascinating. Dr. Lindsted, you want to respond?
Yeah, Dr. Woods and I have not talked about this ahead of the show, but I agree exactly. I believe that the army coming across the Euphrates River dried up is indeed China. Here's what's interesting to me. Erdogan has gone on record just in the last 2 weeks saying that Israel has got to be stopped because, look, they're invading Lebanon. They're trying to get Lebanon. They're trying to take Syria. He accuses Israel of gaining land. Well, the truth is, Erdogan wants Lebanon. Erdogan wants Syria. He's always sided against Israel. He's always been on the side of Russia, Iran, and it's not going to stop. The Bible is clear. Ezekiel 38, that's where Turkey sides. It's interesting that just in the last 10 days, Putin reestablished that he was a friend of Iran and he wasn't changing sides. That's his words. Not going to change sides. Now, why did he say it? Well, because right now, hardly any nation in the world would say that what Iran is doing is correct. They're firing on everybody. But Russia says, no, we're buddies. I sent you a picture of a big Russian missile stuck in the ground. Recently, it was launched into Israel. The missiles that Iran has left are both China-made. The good ones are China-made. The poor ones are Russian-made. I'm making a judge on quality, but I'm talking about their accuracy. I'm talking about their payload. Look, these people have been friends of Iran for years. They're not switching. And so you go to Ezekiel 38. Dr. Woods has said it exactly correct. These people are not changing sides. The nature of Iran is not going to change. Again, I equate it to the story in the Gospels where, you root the evil spirit out of the house, and while you're celebrating that he's gone, 7 more demons come in that are just as bad. And so we're not changing the nature of Iran. I know there's hopeful thinking among the Iranian people that I know that it is going to change. I have friends who are saying we're moving back. We'll establish a democracy, not according to Bible prophecy. There's the picture of that missile. Now, that's a piece of junk. It's a Russian missile stuck in the ground. It's almost laughable when you know. But the cluster missiles are not coming from Russia. The cluster missiles are coming from a different source. And so Iran is pulling all the stops out. because you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to appeal to any friend they've got right now just to exist. That's how desperate they are. But we haven't changed the nature of the beast. The brain of Iran is still wicked, anti-Israel, anti-God, anti-American. And so all the things we're doing, it's almost like, putting makeup on a pig. Because it's still a pig. And so that's what Iran's trying to do. Why? Buying time, trying to get people to settle down. Well, they're going to fool a lot of people. I'm even concerned about our own government. We just heard our president say, we got a substantial gift from Iran. Is that gift oil? Is it money? Are we going to be allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz? We don't even know what the gift is. So I'm not excited about a gift that I don't know what it is. It could be a ballpoint pen. This is ridiculous. So do we stop trying to damage the head of the monster because we got a substantial gift? See, it seems to me like this has to do with money, economics, power, wealth, position, everything but what we were told, the nuclear threat. So that's why I say, where's this war going? And the only thing I can say, it's going to set up the scenario exactly as the Bible said, that Israel is going to be tricked, I think, into signing a treaty. Look at these firings on the Temple Mount. I mean, there's at least 3 that have landed, one 100 meters away, one 200, one 300. There's videos that I have of the actual mountain shaking. I can just see people saying, okay, we gotta do something. Let's let Israel take control. Right now, Israel is not protecting the Temple Mount. Yeah, if a missile comes there, Israel's not protecting it. That's interesting. Why would they do that? Is it to see the Dome of the Rock gone? I don't know. I wish I had that insight. Wish I had friends that could tell me that insight. I don't know, but I know this, that it's a valuable piece of property. So all these things are coming together. The right nations at the right time, the need for religious freedom in Israel, Israel, the people there are at the breaking point.
Yeah, and by the way, Dr. Lindsted, we are getting word from the U.S. ambassador to NATO that some of the NATO nations are going to step up. Apparently, some of the NATO nations are going to step up and help secure the Strait of Hormuz. I want to play that clip from him when we come back and then ask both of you the timetable on Gog-Magog. Is this going to be 6 months after the rapture, before, a year? What do you think? We'll be right back. Studies have shown America's water supply is not safe. It is filled with toxins and chemicals. Go look it up. This is fact. Fact check me. And then I'll offer you this solution. Worldviewwater.net. Take a look at this list. This water purifier removes all kinds of harmful toxins like lead, fluoride, chlorine, arsenic, pesticides, bacteria, and pharmaceuticals, and more. This is the water I give to my 3 dogs. I drink it every day. I have one of the filters in my kitchen, under the kitchen sink, and then I have one on my shower. Do you know how much your skin absorbs of water when you're in the shower each and every day? Protect yourself and your body. Remain healthy. Eat good food. Drink purified, clean water. One of the most powerful water filters available in America. Worldviewwater.net. That's worldviewwater.net. Again, tell your family and friends about it. In fact, maybe even give this as a gift to some of your family and friends, particularly those of you who have children and grandchildren. Worldviewwater.net. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, website worldviewradio.com. Be sure to stay tuned for Crosstalk coming up at the top of the hour with Jim Schneider, the host of America's original Christian talk program, Crosstalk, on over 100 outlets nationwide. Also available if you do not have a terrestrial station in your market. Also available online at vcy.org. They also have Roku channel and apps and many other things as well. vcy.org. V as in Victor. vcy.org. Here is the American ambassador to NATO on with Fox Business. Listen.
We've been in overdrive here diplomatically pushing our allies, both here in Brussels and across capitals in Europe and in the Middle East, to convince everybody. Unfortunately, it took some convincing that this is more important to them than it is to the United States. I mean, we get very little, if any, oil through the Strait of Hormuz. It certainly is affecting, the oil prices of the United States. But that's one of the great things that President Trump was able to do, is to make America energy independent. And that independence obviously guarantees our supply. Now, we have allies that are finally stepping up. I think, from the time this conflict broke out, they were certainly non-committal to what they could bring to the fight or bring to help us. But they have done things that I think goes sometimes unnoticed. We had several allies here in Europe and in NATO that were providing key and crucial basing, overflight, and access, that whether it's Suda Bay, where I was in Greece on the Isle of Crete, or whether it was, other countries, including Germany and France, that were providing our ability to prosecute this fight. So, there are key allies that are contributing, that are providing things. We just want more, and we need more, because even though President Trump has been very clear, Maria, that, we don't need this, it's good to act as a group of nations. Okay. I'm not buying it, Matt. That went a little too far. We don't need this. Really, Matt? You lost me there. Can you be honest, or are you really that much not aware of the big picture? Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff's plan, the digital Gaza plan we have, talks about the Iranian proxies in Gaza. Over and over, we keep hearing about the threat of Iran and the fact that Iran is disrupting what is going to be a great plan, which happens apparently to be, I guess, beneficial to, I'm sorry, I just have to say it, I'm not trying to be anti-Trump, but it's going to benefit the Trump company and organization, apparently, because they're building in that region and in Gaza and in other places. So he lost me there when he started talking about how it's not in our interest, because, well, it may not be in your and my interest here in America per se, but it certainly is in the interest of some of the players, Witkoff and Kushner and the Trump organization and others, and the players of IMEC. I mean, because at the end of the day, don't most of these wars end up being fought on behalf of corporations? Andy?
Yeah, and it's just an interesting scenario about the attention of the world and where it is right now. When you look at Bible prophecy, you don't see anything about the United States of America, as far as I can tell. Almost everything, whether you're dealing with Babylon, whether you're dealing with the invaders in the Gog-Magog scenario, whether you're dealing with Zechariah chapter 12, Zechariah chapter 14, I mean, it's all connected to Israel, Jerusalem, the Middle East. And it's sort of interesting. We used to fight our wars, in the West, World War I, World War II. And then things started moving eastward, Korea, Vietnam. And ever since the Gulf War back in the first Bush administration, the whole focus of the world has been on exactly where God said it would be in the last days, the Middle East and the land of Israel. And all of this discussion today about Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, the Ben Gurion Canal, wealth accumulating to Israel and the Middle East, the whole focus is in that part of the world. And that's exactly what God said it would be like at the end of the age.
Amen. All right, tell me quick answer, Dr. Woods, before we go to Dr. Lindsted. When does Gog-Magog happen?
Well, I believe that Ezekiel 38 and 39 take place when Israel's at peace, because it says that it's so safe that they don't have unwanted villages now. Their children can play in the street. That's not now. So I think Israel's going to make some kind of a peace treaty to not only have peace and safety, but also to get religious permission. When they think they're
so basically,
safe,
this happens after the confirmation of the peace treaty by the Antichrist.
Right. The church is gone. We're gone before they have this peace treaty ratified by the Antichrist, and so Israel's trusting the Antichrist. They think they got a time of peace and safety. When they set down their weapons, when they're in a position where they can't really defend themselves properly, the people that they partnered with, that they thought were friends, now say, "Hey, we need something you've got." there's nothing common that these people have with Israel. They don't like Israel. They don't like the God of Israel. They don't like the habits of Israel. They're enemies of Israel, and they're enemies of the God of Israel. So they come against Israel to take wealth, to take a spoil, to take a gain, to take whatever they want. And so I see that taking place in that tribulation period of time.
Dr. Woods, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what he said. There's two Hebrew verbs there in chapter 38, verse 8 and verse 11. There's batak and shakat. I want to make sure I pronounce the first one right, but when people look at that in Hebrew, they'll see two. And it's not just Israel living in a time of security, but she's also living in a time of tranquility. And the only person that could give them that, other than Jesus himself, is the temporal peace that the Antichrist brings in. And so I'm seeing that peace treaty come into existence, and then war breaks out with the second seal judgment. And that's where I'm putting Ezekiel 38. And I think that's pretty much in harmony with what Dr. Lindsted said. The only thing I would add to it is I think chapter 39 is describing the end of the whole process. And I think the mistake that a lot of us make as interpreters is we think both chapters happen at the same time. But Ezekiel 37 is a process. Ezekiel 36 is a process. And so Ezekiel 38 and 39 is a process. Ezekiel 38 describing towards the beginning of the tribulation period, and chapter 39, it describes the conversion of Israel. It describes the birds of prey feasting on the corpses. Those are events that happen at the end of the tribulation period. So chapter 38 towards the beginning, and chapter 39 is sort of a summation of everything after all is said and done, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, hold right there, gentlemen. AndyWoodsMinistries.org, AndyWoodsMinistries.org. Dr. Lindsted is BibleTipNow.com, BibleTipNow.com. Hold right there, gentlemen. And folks, you should hold right where you're at as well for Crosstalk, or otherwise VCY.org. Take care. And we're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and you here on Worldview Tube. Does it say anywhere in the text, Ezekiel 38 or 39, that the Antichrist tries to usurp God's glory? We have the defeat of the enemies of Israel. I think the bodies lie in Israel, and it takes them, 7 months to bury the dead of their enemies in Israel, the text says. Does it say anywhere that Antichrist, although God does it, and says that God will put a hook in their mouth, draw them out, then he destroys them, maybe a massive earthquake or something, but that the whole world will know that he is God? But does the Antichrist at any point try to usurp this glory or take credit for this in the text, Dr. Woods?
I think it does say that, because when he desecrates the temple, 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 4, he will exalt himself above everything that is called God. And it's almost like God is saying, it's not going to work that way, Mr. Antichrist. And by the time you get to the end of the Gog-Magog prophecy, chapter 39, particularly verse 22 and verse 29 of chapter 39, you'll see that the only person, the only entity, I should say, that gets the glory is God. God has arranged this in such a way that man gets no glory in rescuing Israel at all. All the glory goes to God. And I think the Antichrist tries to eclipse that glory when he desecrates the temple at the midpoint.
Dr. Woods, what are your Dr. Lindsted, what's your thought on that?
Then again, how we agree, because you see, there's a power play that the Antichrist makes when he says, "Okay, I'm going to break the treaty. You're not going to be allowed to worship. You got to worship me," and he sets his image up to be worshipped. Isn't it interesting that in Thessalonians it talks about the fact that he's going to destroy the Antichrist with the brightness of his glory? There's a moment when he destroys the Antichrist just with his brightness. And what I like is that Israel, who's known for its technology, known for its weapons, known for being fierce fighters, when you see them at the end of chapter 38, they have no resources. There's no America, there's no Trump, there's no League of Nations to come and help them. But God gives 7 incredible miracles there from a plague, from mutiny, hailstones, and so when he's done, it's just like when he took Israel out of Egypt. It's God. God will rescue Israel. And so God's point to Israel is, look, I've been here all along, but you refused my help. And now they say, we recognize you are our defense. You're our salvation. You're our Messiah. And but the other nations fade behind. Why? Because they are also tricked and subservient to this Antichrist. The Antichrist has such a hold on the world, whether it's through AI, whether it's through other negotiations he's done, that the rest of the world can't help. We will be outsmarted by an Antichrist, whether we like to admit it or not. That's why I don't know that the Antichrist is any of the people that we normally attribute that. I don't know that we have anyone that smart, because the Antichrist is going to do them in, all of them in. Every negotiator that we have that thinks they're going to get the upper hand, the Antichrist is going to make them look like a schoolboy. And one other thing I want to say, I told you, Brandon, I just got back in the country, and without mentioning this woman by name, but we were eating in a restaurant, and she was talking about the people we had with us, and she was amazed at their behavior, their politeness, their kindness. And as I talked to her about it, she found out I was a superintendent at a Christian school, and she said, wow. She said, just today, she said, I prayed, I said, oh God, send me a man of God, me, how I can reach out to you. And I can say, well, you know what? I'm going to tell you that it's through the Bible, it's through the person of Jesus Christ. And that lady showed me her arm, and there were goosebumps on her arm. Because she said, I have no hope. She said, I'm looking for somewhere to go, to read, to do. And Brandon, think about the people that get a chance to watch Worldview Weekend Network. This is incredible, because today, for 1 hour, we talked about most of what you're seeing on the news is almost a cover-up, because the real story is God is moving things in place so that his word will be fulfilled exactly. I may not interpret everything exactly right now, but I know when all is said and done, every jot and tittle of God's word will be fulfilled exactly as he said it. And
Amen.
What a hope. Without that, we have no hope. But with that, wow, we say, okay, God has a plan. And since I'm with God, I'm part of his plan. That's what I want. That's a hope that I want.
Absolutely. And Dr. Woods and Dr. Lindsted, on this day as well, look at this. Here's what walked out at the White House today. A robot walked out with Melania Trump. Have you guys seen this?
No.
You've not seen that, Dr. Woods?
I have not seen that. That blows my mind.
How about you, Dr. Lindsted?
I did. I saw it while I was eating lunch. It's, wow, we're swallowing AI hook, line, and sinker. And
it talked. She talked and greeted the crowd and spoke. And tonight I will play that and discuss this with Patrick Wood. And you've got the French President Emmanuel Macron's wife standing there, and other world leaders. I don't know who those other people are, their wives or who they are. I'm guessing they are. But this robot walks out in a female voice, started speaking. I'll play that tonight. Again, kind of brings to, look at that, walking right in front of the table, standing there, greeting the crowd. I mean, wait until you see this image the Antichrist sets up in the temple that the false prophet will breathe breath into, which the word there, I think is the same one as spirit, breathes a demonic spirit into it. We're all being conditioned for this. Aren't you thankful you have the Bible, my friends? And aren't you thankful for men like Dr. Woods and Dr. Lindsted? We are. AndyWoodsMinistries.org and then BibleTipNow.com. We're at WorldviewFoundation.com. We need your support to keep pushing out Christian worldview programming like this. I said the other day we should call it Make Bible Prophecy Great Again, or Make Bible Prophecy Popular Again. And one of our very smart viewers said, how about MEGA, M-E-G-A, make eschatology great again? So I will say, Donald Trump, thank you for making eschatology great again. MEGA. Are you ready for the hats and T-shirts, guys?
Yeah.
Take care. Tonight on the Worldview Report, an explosion at the Valero refinery in Port Arthur, Texas, that prompted at the time